I'm Tiffany Cloud. Welcome to The Storm, and thank you for watching today on WYLN TV 35. Those of us who live in the greater Hazleton area have strong ties to the coal industry. Many of us have relatives who have worked in the industry. In my case, my late grandfather, who was a breaker boy. On today's episode of The Storm, I'll be speaking with Adam Wilson with Atlantic Coal Company about whether big government has taken its foot off the neck of the coal industry, what has improved related to stifling regulations, and what still needs to get better. We're talking coal on The Storm right after the break.
The Storm on WYLN TV 35 is sponsored by Atlantic Carbon Group PLC.
Pull it.
There are lots of things you can pull, but what's the most fun? Pulling parts at Harry's You Pull It, the world's largest auto salvage yard. Pull it. Pull it. Come visit any of their 3 convenient Harry's You Pull It locations: Hazleton, Allentown, Pennsburg, and Pull It.
Join us this week on Let's Talk Chiropractic. You'll meet Rhonda, who's going to tell you how laser therapy helped her get back on her feet after a bad ankle break. Her story this week on Let's Talk Chiropractic. Join us.
The Whitetail Preserve Spring Trap Skeet League starts Tuesday, April 16th at 5 p.m. It is open to anyone who is above beginner stage in their skills. You can sign up at Whitetail any weekend leading up to the start date. Remember, the kitchen is open on Tuesdays at 5, so no need to fret over dinner. The cost is $30 to sign up, and this will go towards league maintenance, prizes, and the banquet that will be held June 18th. Remember to follow Whitetail on Facebook, facebook.com/whitetail-preserve.
In a world where an instant tweet can create a firestorm of news coverage, WYLN is moving with the times, allowing for more instant reporting of breaking news on television and on social media, as well as regular hourly news updates. News gets out faster than ever before, and WYLN brings it all to you. Live weekdays at 5:30 only on WYLN. We're your local network.
Welcome back to The Storm. I am joined by Adam Wilson, who is chairman of the Atlantic Carbon Group today. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tiffany. Pleasure to be here.
Really happy to have you, and I have to say a special thank you to Lou Pagnotti for also helping to facilitate you coming on. I appreciate that very much. A couple months ago, I had the pleasure of touring parts of your operation here in the greater Hazleton area. Obviously a very impressive operation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And those who live in the immediate area may be somewhat familiar with it, but for those who aren't, or maybe aren't so familiar, I'd love you to tell us a bit about the operation and its history.
Sure. We're trying, Atlantic Carbon Group is really an amalgam of some of the local coal companies. We're trying to consolidate the industry where we can, put them together. So the first acquisition was a company called Coal Contractors, which is on sort of one side of the Stockton Mountain Road. Mm-hmm. And then fairly recently, maybe 2 years ago, we bought the Hazleton Shaft Corporation. That was of quite historic importance because that had the original shaft that went sort of 3,000 foot down for all of the mining really around this region. Since then, from Pagnotti Enterprises, we have taken under royalty, a lease in Jeansville, okay, and across the road at Wet Springs and the Spring Mountain Basin. So we're running probably five different collieries, 5 different mines now. So really trying to see a rebirth really in anthracite. which I don't know how familiar you are with that.
I am, and we're going to definitely get into it because a lot of people don't realize the differences in the different types of coal. So
and one of the things we're trying to do is really a reapplication of that of anthracite because of its high chemical qualities. So more historically around this region, you would have seen a lot of people burn anthracite for its heating potential. It's got very little ash in it, very high carbon. But what we're trying to do is create an industrial company, industrial carbon, and we're trying to use that carbon in an industrial application. Most people will be familiar that anthracite is put into steel.
Yes.
But you can also go in as a compound material. As you're seeing cars, for example, Tesla and things running on batteries, those cars need to get lighter. So often you'll find carbon replacing steel where you want low weight and high strength. You'd probably be familiar with carbon fiber in tennis rackets and things.
Sure.
So you're now getting some of the main car manufacturers putting that carbon into things like BMW frames and the Dreamliner aeroplane. That is now a carbon frame. So as people move away from steel, aluminium, you go into carbon, ever lighter, stronger materials. And we've got some of the best natural carbon in the world here in Pennsylvania. 450 square miles is the only really place you can mine anthracite. And anthracite has about 88 to 92% carbon. So it starts naturally carbon. Of course, if it was 100% carbon, you know what you would get?
Well,
a diamond. A diamond's 100% carbon. So I haven't found any yet. Believe you me, we're looking. But
when you do come back on the show, okay?
But that's what basically carbon is. It is that fossil fuel pressed under pressure, which is why it comes in seams rather than lies flat. It's the highest quality of any type of coal, anthracite. As you get up to 96, 97% carbon, you go into graphite. A meta-anthracite, you get into graphite. It goes higher and higher, and as I said, 100% carbon, you're now into that is what people put on their fingers and flash around there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how many people are you employing?
We do about 155 now post the latest acquisition. Not all working at one time. I have to stress we have different shifts and first shift, second shift, third shift as we both wash the coal, dry the coal, and mine the coal. But that's total local, and all of them really locally employed.
Right, and certainly we have people locally employed, and a lot of us in the local area, we have strong ties to the industry in general. We have relatives who worked in the coal industry or may still work in the coal industry. I said in my show Open, my own grandfather was a breaker boy back in the early 1900s in this area. And certainly, I'm very passionate about this industry and making sure that we fight for this industry. Certainly, many years ago, it felt like the regulations were absolutely overwhelming, and I'm sure that there are plenty of regulations that are still overwhelming, which we'll get into. But I wanted to ask you this question. During the 2016 cycle, we saw all these signs, Trump digs coal. What has this administration done thus far to really lift some of the stifling regulations and make it easier for you to operate in a profitable way?
Well, one of the things that the administration really has started to do, and I think the key thing for us, if I could pick any one thing, well, there's two things really. The first thing is it recognizing the difference between anthracite and bituminous coal, and we're really starting to get there. Anthracite, as I said, it's really a niche product, different from most other coals found all around America, and niche because it's probably only 1 or 2% of total US coal. So very, very small product proportion. And what anthracite is, it's got this very high carbon, and because the coal is 88 to 92% carbon, there's a little bit of other chemicals in it, but very little ash. And when you burn it, that's why it's called the clean coal, the caviar of coal, the aristocrat, all of these names. That comes from the very low ash that comes up into the atmosphere and would burn in your house.
So you're going to tell me that the other kind of coal probably sent much more ash?
30%. So they have huge, great flue stacks. The reason that other coal was so prevalent is because it runs in flat seams close to the ground. The seams are much bigger, so it's much easier to mine. But
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, the difference is it hasn't been put under pressure.
Okay.
It's the pressure that makes anthracite look like glass when you see it. It's a very fine, very, very hard, and it runs in syncline in great big U's. And why it's here in this part of Pennsylvania is this is where the Appalachian Mountain Range squeezed it, if you like. Right. So the other coal, it still has a lot of ash in it. So when you burn it, that ash goes up in for power. A lot of that, so coal gets anthracite gets an unfair, bad reputation.
Because they bulk it all in with the other kind.
They say it's all coal, but we are a clean coal. Often you'll hear that. And the reason it's clean is because there's just nowhere near as much ash as there is in bituminous or thermal coal.
So when the big government has been regulating, or I would say over-regulating for many, many, many years, it was because they were lumping you all together.
Correct.
And you're saying that the Trump administration has helped made that distinction.
Very much so. And it has eased off some of the MSHOR and DEP, some of the regulations, it's easing them back. So we're a highly regulated industry in the first place. And a lot of the coal industry had to suffer for the sins of yesterday. Mm-hmm. So where previously, 50 years ago, coal companies weren't reclaiming properly, they would mine a site and just leave it, move to the next site, creating land that was unusable. There's a few mine disasters around the area where houses had fallen into the land underneath, which had been mined. All of that we're putting back now. Where we mine is all reclaimed. We're fully bonded, fully 100% bonded, so the land has to be filled back in, and we're taking the land down, collapsing all the old holes that were put there before and tunnels, extracting the mineral, and then putting the land back how it was before.
That's a perfect way to go to the first commercial break, because we're going to talk a bit more about reclamation, and we're also going to talk about some of the things that have not been adequately deregulated and what we need government to do. We'll be right back on The Storm.
The Storm on WYLN TV 35 is sponsored by Atlantic Carbon Group PLC. SJ Kowalski is your Mitsubishi Diamond Contractor. They can install a Mitsubishi electric Mr. Slim ductless heating and cooling system. Mr. Slim systems are designed to make any living space in your home inviting. You can have a different temperature control for every room in your home. The money-saving technology can save you 25 to 50% on your heating bill. For Mitsubishi, Renai, and trained comfort specialists, call SJ Kowalski at 570-455-2600. Go hog wild for Iron Pigs Baseball. WYLN is televising the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs live. America's favorite pastime on your local network, WYLN TV 35. See the Stars of Tomorrow at Coca-Cola Park. Don't miss any of the games here on WYLN TV 35. Visit WYLNTV.com for a complete Iron Pigs schedule. Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs on WYLN, your home for live sports.
Your phone slides off the console and falls at your feet. Get the new Fastball. It's the magnetic mount that holds any device tight. Fastball combines a steel ball and magnetic socket to create the ultimate media mount. Now you can adjust your phone 360 degrees to any angle, any position, and your phone stays securely in place. Then releases with a light tug. Just pick your spot and stick it up. Then place the ultra-thin magnetic disc on the back of your phone or case. It's the perfect mount for tablets, too. Call and get the incredible Fastball for just $19.99. But wait, call right now and we'll double it to 2 absolutely free. That's 2 Fastball mounts for just $19.99. Call now.
Call 1-800-341-4708. That's 1-800-341-4708. Or visit myfastball.com. So call 1-800-341-4708 now.
Life in the Monastery, the new CD by the Sisters of Holy Annunciation Monastery, can be yours for only $18, which includes shipping and tax. Mail a check to Holy Annunciation Monastery, 403 West County Road, Sugarloaf, Pennsylvania, 18249, or call 570-78-1205. This fantastic CD can be yours for only $18.
I'm Gary Perna, news director and reporter for WYLN News. With a decade of experience in local news, I'm proud to be part of the #1 local news team, WYLN News. When local news happens, you can count on WYLN News to be there, whether it's in McAdoo, Harrisburg, or right here in Hazleton. We've worked hard to be your #1 local news station, and we'll continue to work hard to stay #1.
Welcome back to The Storm. I'm here today with Adam Wilson. He is the chairman of Atlantic Carbon Group, and we're talking about coal. In the first segment, we spoke, Adam, about some of the things that this administration has been doing to lift regulations and certainly just to kind of redefine and educate people as to the differences, that there are different types of coal. They don't necessarily all have to be regulated in the same way. One of my questions is, though, obviously, as you said, it's a heavily regulated industry. What are some additional things that you need your legislators to work on for the industry so that you could really thrive?
Well, I think, as I say, the first thing, the most important thing, which we touched on last time, is to separate the differences between anthracite and bituminous coal, where they are burning ash. The other thing that I think was over-regulated by the Obama administration was the Clean Air Act. And what we're seeing now is Trump is really pushing on that so that other coals can go back. It's still the cheapest, by a long way, the cheapest way to generate electricity, far cheaper than solar and all this kind of thing. So that drives investment into the industry, and that's what Obama did worse. He put these restrictions on. He forced extra regulation. We don't mind being very well regulated with MSHA and DMP, but when you're so regulated and you so have the administration breathing down your neck, you strive off the investment, and it's the investment you need to grow an industry. As we discussed earlier, we're trying to move our industry, from heating coal to industrial carbon, and you need to be able to attract investors. This is a very capital intensive business. You need to dig 400 feet, 500 feet sometimes down. I mean, the funny enough, everyone assumes that coal is environmentally unfriendly, but the truth of the matter is we are fixing the sins, as we discussed earlier. We're fixing the sins of yesterday. We're going back to land that's unusable if you've got deep tunnels under it. As we create jobs, we're mining the new mineral with its chemical qualities. We're filling the land back in, giving it back to land bank. So what we really need is investment. And also you'll find that as we get into carbons, you get into rare earths, all of these things that you probably never heard of, but they're all in your mobile phone, in your smartphone, in your TV. They're all conductive. All of these things, can be taken from the, from the ground, from minerals, and can use to expand. But you need investment, and that's what I think Trump is really helping most. The difference between him and Obama, who couldn't be more different. He had a war on coal. So
absolutely,
you couldn't have a sort of different attitude, and that encourages investment. And that's, for me, is the biggest single change. There are things like we could go into specifics, like the Clean Air Act, like the methane testing. All of those are good, and we abide by all of those testing, but it's the investment that really drives the industry to grow.
One of the things that's always neat to me is in this area, a lot of time we hearken back to the good old days when coal was king, and we think of yesteryear, and we still think of, oh, that was then and it's over. But everything that you're saying to me is so promising about the future and looking at coal in a new way, new uses, it's a new vision for this, which could ultimately be a whole new vision for our area.
Well, you start by having millions, if not billions of tons of this exceptional high quality material underway. It's right under the town of Hazleton, under where we are now. No, it's not all accessible because obviously it's 30,000 people or however many live in the town of Hazleton. But the mineral itself, having been pushed together with geology, where the Appalachian Mountains came to, it's a one in a, honestly, I can't tell you how rare it is to get that high a carbon coal, that high a carbon anthracite here. It's nowhere else in the USA. And as you go to these compound materials, these industrial carbons, which is the new market for this, you could really open up and expand in what has been, sadly, as back in 1917, I think there was 100 million tons of anthracite mined in the northeast Pennsylvania area. That dropped to about 2 million tons maybe a couple of years ago. We're back up to 3 million tons. And as the pricing improves, new applications are found for it. Carbon, another application for it is every swimming pool and municipal water treatment plant filters sewage through a carbon filter. Again, we make it naturally. So there are more and more of these applications coming on stream now. Steel is the biggest application, the making of steel. As you go away from a blast furnace, which is the traditional way to make steel, and you go to an electric arc furnace, the carbon is injected into the mix to make the steel. It takes a lot of the heat out of it, and it takes a lot of the impurities out of the steel to leave the scrap steel, make new steel.
Okay.
So again, if Mr. Trump, we hope, has an infrastructure bill to really boost America, roads and hospitals and airports, and even coming from England, I can tell you some of your airports could do with a little bit of an upgrade.
Oh, you think just a little, yeah.
Especially compared to China and places like that have spent. If you're going to build these, you're going to need more steel. If you need more steel, you need more carbon. And so anthracite is a perfect, it's as it grows in size, it can replace things like pet coke and met coal. Pet coke is the derivative of fuel. It's a resin for fuel, but it has too much sulfur. So again, anthracite's the superior mineral because it doesn't burn sulfur into the environment. Pet metallurgical coal is often coked in an oven to get rid of some of the volatile on it. Anthracite doesn't need that extra application, so you don't need to heat it, you don't need to expend the energy. It's a better product. It really is. I always tell my staff it's the caviar of coal.
The caviar of coal.
Caviar of coal. So if you can develop the industry around here, around anthracite, and we're not the only mining company. You've got people like Blashak and Lehigh. If you can develop this, business from where it, back up again, I think you really can boost the local economy.
Well, honestly, I thought that one of the first bills that would be pushed through when President Trump was elected would be an infrastructure bill, because I know they wanted to address Obamacare out of the gate because that was one of his campaign promises. But in hindsight, perhaps the parties would have better come together over something like an infrastructure bill. If they had come out of the gate with that, perhaps the left could have come on board somehow with the right and found some common ground instead of everybody so dug in. But who knows, maybe we shall see one.
Fingers crossed.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, though, trade. We hear in the news a lot about the threat of trade wars. We obviously know that the president is putting a lot of pressure on China. They've been certainly trying to do plenty, which has been very harmful to pricing of our products, of our ability to manufacture and other things in our own country. And I'm just curious, the pressure that we're putting on China, well, I certainly think it's a good thing. How is it impacting your industry?
I have to say I'm a fan. I'm only a fan because the raw materials of growth, steel is one of the biggest raw materials of growth, and the US was built on steel. Carnegie, Frick, Mellon, all these great companies, very close to here. Bethlehem Steel was one of the biggest founders. I think even the Wharton School at Pennsylvania there's some connection there back to, so that really was a founding father of America's growth. A lot of the technology, China Steel, a lot of the IP, they manufacture cheaper, they don't have the same regulations. So, any kind of tariffs to address the balance or redress the balance, I'm all for. It's a little bit,
So we want free, but we want fair trade.
We want fair trade. And
right,
of course,
you
want to give Americans jobs here, where they're making the steel. Steel is the bedrock for building anything. You need, if you're going to build, you put steel in it. Even if it's concrete, it has a steel frame. So if you're going to have a big infrastructure bill, why not use American steel, to grow the economy, to grow that business? And so, you don't want cheap imports of Chinese steel, especially when their factories and their mines don't have anything like the same regulations, safety that they have in America.
That is for sure. They certainly don't. And with that, we're going to take another break. We're going to be right back on The Storm.
The Storm on WYLN TV 35 is sponsored by Atlantic Carbon Group PLC.
It's spring, and savings are in the air during the spring sales event at All American Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Shop our large inventory and drive off with a great deal. Lease a new Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 for $189 a month. And during Ram Truck Month, get select Ram 1500 4x4s for as low as $32,890. Or get 0% for 72 months on the Ram 1500. Savings are in the air during the spring sales event at All American Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram.
Watch Off the Beaten Path on WYLN TV 35 and discover the Pennsylvania you never knew existed.
It begins with a click, and just like that, you are immersed in a world of wonder, education, entertainment, information. Connect with family and friends from around the block or around the world. So when it's time to connect, Service Electric will be there to make it happen. Now offering speeds up to 150 megabits per second. Service Electric, connecting you to what's important.
Welcome back to The Storm. So we've been talking about coal. I started out the show by really talking about how so many in this community have ties to the industry at some point, either currently or in their past family. I'd like to really talk and close it out by saying, what does the community need to know about your company and what you're doing?
Well, we try to give back. It's not just about taking. So there's a few things we've done for the community. Firstly, we run a recruiting, local recruiting thing. We try to take anybody with a degree, with anyone from Penn State. We've our engineer, our accountant, our financial controller, all of those came from Penn State. And anyone from the local who's looking for a job, please contact us. We are expanding, looking for local people in the Hazleton.
Jobs, love it.
Yeah. Second thing is we have a decent section of our mine we stripped out and gave it to Rails to Trails, which is a local community nature sort of trail thing. We helped them build the bridge over the main railway that runs from through the town of Hazleton over to Humboldt. We put the bridge in. We did that. So we're very keen to not just take, but to give back to the community. I'm also keen at the Jeansville location where we put out the fire, where you might not have had a Hazleton if that fire had burnt up the city like it did in Centralia. So we put that fire out for the community, and we're now looking to try and give some relief to the large number of trucks that we're running on that road, and we'd like to transport the raw coal to the processing plants on the railway network that's already in place. People just need to bear with me a little time.
Little patience.
Little patience.
But the good news is it's prosperity.
It's on the way. I've just got to build the siding to put the car, but that is under construction as we speak. I ought to give a big shout out to Reading and Northern. Great railway company, been incredibly helpful for the local community. So a really great organisation. I should thank them as well.
Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a great education.
It's
I
been a
remember
pleasure
when you
coming
look
in.
around and you don't like what you see, don't complain about it. You can do something about it. Thank you for watching.